Walton, thank you for being here.
Thank you so much for having me. Thank you for being here.
Oh, thank you. Oh,
thank you for being here.
Thank you all for being here. Yes.
Let's all thank each other for being here.
And also with you. You just got off a plane. That is an extra reason to thank you. Do you want to tell the people where you have come from tonight?
I have a child. I'm a parent. They'll let anybody be a parent if they'll let me be a parent. My son is 14 years old, and you know, being a parent, knowing kind of, I'm not going to have him for that much longer, right? They go off, and we've been talking ad nauseum about, you know, what it means to become a man, right? And what it means to become a human, and how do you mark that occasion? And we both wanted to mark that occasion to make it special. And he's obsessed with this part of the world, Mongolia and Central Asia, and it's a place that I'm kind of obsessed with too. And I said, okay, well then, you know, let's plan this, and just together. And so the two of us got on horses and we rode across Western Mongolia for 10, 12 days, you know, and it was the trip of a lifetime, and it was just an opportunity really to be quiet and to spend that time with each other, and to, you know, I feel the path to becoming a better human is always through visiting other cultures and seeing how they live, and so we just kind of meditated on humanity for a couple of weeks, and we just got back last night.
So
it was good. I got a good kid. I got a good guy.
Very cool kid, and all that is wonderful. But that said, without cheating, what time do you think it is right now?
It's time to go to bed in an hour and a half. Yeah, you know what? I often wonder, like, how do diplomats, like, what do people that spend their life on the road, you know, for very short periods of time, how do they deal with kind of time change? I know how I deal with it. I'm curious how you deal with it, or anybody in this room. But I just tend to, you know, like, it's almost like getting a job, you know, as an actor. I am wherever I am, and that's the time zone that I'm in. Right. So I just don't think about it.
You're in Walton time.
Yeah, it's 6:30 in New York City. That's what time it is right now.
Well, this is a career retrospective, so I want to go back to the beginning. Born in Alabama, raised in Georgia. What was Walton Goggins like as a small child? Were you interested in Mongolia when you were 14?
Wow. Okay. What was? I was an only child. Parents divorced when I was 3. Raised by a group of women, of real steel magnolias, you know. It was about 7 of them. My mom and her 3 sisters, and my grandmother, and my cousin Scarlett, and we were poor, you know. And but I was their, you know, I was their guy, and it was as if I was raised by all of these women and a group of really kind of forward-thinking, hippie Southern people. And like, for instance, I had a lot of different babysitters when I was a kid. You know, my mom was single, and they played this one game called hide and go freak out. You know, instead of hide and go seek, and you know, a couple of guys would, you know, come over to their house and they said, well, you want to play hide and go freak out? I was like, sure. How do we play hide and go freak out? They said, well, we're going to drop acid. You're gonna go hide. We're gonna drop acid and see if we can find you. And if we find you, then we're all gonna freak out. I was like, sure, I can play that game. Yeah, I would love that game. Sometimes they didn't find me. That was the only problem. But it was a wild and strange kind of alt kind of Southern experience growing up, and they introduced me to a lot of different things. My mom was a Paramhansa Yogananda devotee. You know, I went to Jesus camp. I dated Pentecostal girls, and then I dated people, or I had friends with different theologies from all over the world. You know, I really grew up around a bunch of seekers, and that introduced me to a lot of different ways of thinking and of living one's life. And it was, you know, colorful and all the right ways. I think I spent a lot of time alone too, being an only child, and a lot of time in my head, but was also, every single one of them were extremely entertaining and very good storytellers. So it was
gonna
colorful.
Ask what kind of matriarchy and that kind of colorful characters in your early days, how that informs you as an actor now. You must be drawing on some of that kind of color.
Yeah, I think anybody worth their weight in salt that, is alive and gets to kind of move through the world, whether you know it or not, you're constantly being informed by the people around you. Mm-hmm. I mean, I think luckily for me, I was acutely aware of how strange my childhood was, Yeah. And I got to meet so many different people that did so many different things, and I knew, I suppose, without knowing, that all of these conversations that I was having with all of these people were gonna, factor into my life in some way. I didn't know that it was gonna be as an actor,
right.
For sure, but I knew that their opinions and their ways of looking at the world were definitely having an impact on me, and I have incorporated, a part of almost every single person that I've met over the course of my young adult life into, what it is that we all do for a living.
Do you remember a time, like watching television or movies, where you sort of became aware of the job of acting and the idea beginning of maybe this is something I can do?
That's a great question. We didn't go to the movies, so much. As a kid, I mean, my mom took me to see like Escape from New York, and yeah.
And then had a freak out.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, and so I mean, there were a few movies. I mean, Tender Mercies. Obviously, Bob Duvall became one of my heroes straight away. But it was really when I was 6 years old. My aunt was an actor in the theater, and my uncle, but my mom's sister, my Aunt Joan, and I went to stay with them while they were doing a show in Birmingham. Believe it or not, they were equity, house actors for a really long time, and I remember, being in a theater much like this, and being taken to my seat. I remember my feet not touching the ground. And they had this little mocktail that was served in a cowboy boot glass, and somebody handed me this little, lemonade or whatever, and then the lights went out, and then all of a sudden my Aunt Joan walks on stage, and I was like, Joan, Aunt Joan, and she didn't break, it was like there was nobody in the audience with me. And I just watched her pretend to be someone else with my uncle for an hour and a half in a dark room with people that I'd never met in my life. And at the end of it, I just remember standing up because everybody else stood up and just clapping and having this euphoric kind of feeling of like, wow, you just did something special just happened in this room. Yeah. And that was my earliest memory, thinking that I want to do that for a living.
Yeah. Well, here's where I get to fact check fun facts I found about you on the internet.
Ooh, wait a minute. I was lying. Those were lies.
Is it true or false that you were a state champion clogger?
I was clogger. Yeah. My mom taught me how to clog. She was a clogger when I was like 4 or 5 years old, 6 years old, and my aunt was a publicist for a while and worked with B.B. King.
Oh my God.
Yeah, with B.B. and we did my mom and I opened a couple of shows, like prison shows that he sponsored, like the Fulton County Penitentiary, and we would just come out and they would just say, just go out there and clog. Just entertain people, and then somebody else would kind of come on afterwards and play, and so I've been clogging my whole life.
Just a quick follow-up. What is the difference between clogging and tap?
Oh God! Does anyone have ChatGPT?
No, I'm just curious. I really don't know what the difference
I don't
is.
know. I mean, clogging, is descended from it's an Irish kind of folk dance, right?
Yeah.
And that you know, a lot of Irish people settled in the hills in the South, and that's just really kind of where it kind of came into our life. And but yeah, I don't know the exact difference, but I know like if clogging is I mean tap is like it's on your toes. I think I don't know how to tap dance, but it's a what toe heel stomp, right? Yeah. So if you do that over and over again, like that,
Yeah.
then that's kind of clogging. I don't know. If Sam Rockwell was here, he'd do a little Bob Fosse tap dance. Let me get him on the phone.
We got to see some of your own moves in this last year in, Righteous Gemstones.
Yeah, you did.
Yeah,
Yeah,
just saying.
yeah.
So let's go to when you decided to make a break for LA, to say, okay, I'm going to pack up, I'm going to go to Los Angeles. I know you've told this story before, but for those who don't know it, can you explain how American Express played a part in your journey to LA?
Yes, I can. God, I just love being in a room filled with actors, right? It's like, how do we start? Where does that begin? And how, every journey has a first step, right? And for me, I started working in Atlanta. I was like 16 years old, after not getting like a few jobs in high school, but then I was lucky enough because we had in our hometown In the Heat of the Night, and so Carol O'Connor was a very kind, good man that helped a lot of people in my hometown, and so I did that, and then I did this big movie of the week called Murder in Mississippi. And it got nominated for like 8 Golden Globes, and it was a big cast. It was CCH Pounder and Jennifer Grey and Tom Hulce and Blair Underwood. It was, and I just had a little thing. And just like everything else in my life, I may not know how to do it, but I do have a lot of heart. And I went in to audition, for this gentleman, and I walked in and I read my thing, and he said, okay, take these sides. I didn't even know really what sides were. I didn't really know anything. And he said, go outside and then come back in and read this. And I did as he said. I came back in and I read it. He said, okay, all right, thank you very much. And they actually fired the actor that they had hired, and they gave me this big role, in a movie of the week back when they made those things, and so I didn't really know where my life was going to go. I knew that this is what I wanted to do, and then I went to college. I felt like that was a responsible thing to do,
Yes.
and I very first day at school, I got some mail, right? Like, wait a minute, how do you know I'm in school? What? This is to Walton Goggins, and it turns out it was one of the pieces of mail I got was an offer from American Express to get their credit card, and if you got their credit, to go into debt, like to buy a television or something, and if you got this card, this particular offer that they were making, they would fly you east of the Mississippi. You get 2 round-trip tickets east of the Mississippi for $99. Or west of the Mississippi for $199. This was back when tickets were like $1,000. It was like $1,200. It was expensive. Like phone calls were expensive, and flights to the West Coast were expensive. And I looked at this piece of mail and I thought, well, that's it. My life has changed. I'm gonna do this semester of college or this year, and I'm gonna enroll, and I'm gonna get this card, and I'm gonna have 2 tickets to Los Angeles. And I'm going to begin my journey, and that was it. And so after that first year of college, with my American Express card that I spent nothing on, I didn't charge one thing. They're still pissed off. And I took those 2 tickets and that first ticket for $199, and I moved to Los Angeles with $300 in my pocket.
That's unbelievable. It is, and this is yes.
We all start somewhere. We have to.
This is when I think being young can really help you, because you don't even know what you don't know to go to Los Angeles.
I think there is a certain amount of audacity,
Yeah.
right, with
But
age,
it's a
for
good
sure.
thing.
I think
Yeah.
so. Yeah. I don't know. And I've said this in interviews before, but if I sat here and said I wanted to be an actor, I couldn't think of anything else to do with my life, I would be lying.
Yeah.
You know, what I wanted to do more than anything was see the world. I wanted to see how other people thought. I wanted to see how other people lived their life, and I wanted to have a passport that I could look back over the course of my life when I was older that told a story, you know, my own story. And I just so happened to be raised with a bunch of great storytellers, like I told you, and seeing them tell stories, seeing my aunt tell stories, that was a way in which I felt like I could express myself.
Right.
And then the opportunity happened to come to Los Angeles, knowing that this is what I wanted to do. But if it didn't work out, it would still be a grand life experience,
An adventure.
and that would have led to something else, you know. And but this was it, and I think this was always going to be it.
I think so. But what were those early years like? Was there ever a point of crisis of confidence?
They were hungry. It was hungry. It was ramen noodles like everybody else. You know, no, I mean, I moved out to LA again, you know, and I was able to get an agent because I knew some people in Atlanta that, you know, that I had worked for, and that knew some people, you know, in Los Angeles, and so I was able to get an agent, and I did start to work, you know, pretty early. But really, what I wanted to do was learn what it was I was asking myself to do. I didn't want to just be a good storyteller. I wanted to enjoy storytelling. I wanted to understand a way of working that was sustainable for a lifetime. You know, even if I didn't get the opportunity to do it for a lifetime, I just wanted to give myself over to something.
Right.
And so I got a job, the only job I could get. You know, I mean, I had $300, like that was it, and I got a job at a place called LA Fitness, and I mean, the 5 a.m. to the 9 a.m.
Sure.
making $4.50 an hour, and I did that for a month. And then I thought, like, well, this is way too early to get up. So I said, okay, well, I've got this job. I've also valet parked when I was in, you know, college for that year, for believe it or not, for Deion Sanders, this club that he had. Yeah.
No way.
And I made some money doing that. So I got a briefcase, and I walked down Ventura Boulevard, and I just knocked on, you know, restaurants, and said, hey, you know, my name's Walton Goggins, and I'm from Georgia, and I'd like to run your valet.
And finally, someone said, okay.
No, I got 3 accounts in one day, and so, you know, within a month, you know, because I couldn't work in a restaurant. I was never really good at taking orders, but I could park cars,
Yeah.
so then I had I had my own business. And that kind of supported. You know, I didn't make a lot of money, but it allowed me to do what I needed to do. I employed a bunch of other actors, and it was lean. But I studied every day. Mm-hmm. I found a teacher, a gentleman by the name of David LeGrant. It was extremely important to me, and there were a lot of people in this class. Toby McGuire, you know, one of them, young Toby, and a few other folks, and I studied with him for a couple of years, and then I found the teacher that really changed my life. And I did. I started working, and I was doing this movie in Texas, and I worked with this actress, and she's still around. She was so, excuse my language, she was so fucking good. And moreover, she was having such a good time doing it, you know, and I felt so tortured. And I just asked her, you know, how, what? Who are, what, how? And she said, here's a number, for this guy, Harry Mastro George. If you call him, it'll change your life. And I did. And I called him, and he became my guy. And what he said in that first meeting is still, some of the most important words that anyone has ever said to me in this business. And then I dedicated every dollar that I had and every waking moment to being in that class and watching other people do what it is that we're asking ourselves to do. And while everybody else was partying, I was just laser focused on this craft.
Those early days of auditioning, did you feel like Hollywood knew what to make of you, or were they confused about what box they wanted to put you in, if they could put you in a box?
I don't even think they were thinking about a box, man. I don't even, maybe like not even a carton, like, who is this guy? Even though I was able to, I was able to get some jobs. I was able to really kind of start working. But yeah, I don't think anybody really had any idea, what to do with me. But I did. I lost my Southern accent by doing one thing that my teacher told me to do, and I read Shakespeare sonnets every single day. While I was waiting, parking cars, like after there was a couple of different seatings, and I would just read them over and over and over and over and over again to lose my accent. And
that's a smart way of doing it.
Yeah. It worked. It really, really worked. And there was one day in particular where this actor showed up when I parked his car, and it was Ed Asner. And I was like, Ed, Mr. Asner, oh my God, my father and all the rest of it, we're such a fan. I'm gonna work with you someday, sir. And he said, I hope that you will, right? Sweet. And I did. A week later. And it was a radio play that we did at Warner Brothers, and it was the John Thomas Scopes trials or something like that. And I walked in, and he was there, and he said, well, you said you were going to work with me. I just thought it would take more than a week. Yeah. And I went in and I read for the first movie that I got in Los Angeles was Billy Crystal, and it was Mr. Saturday Night, and I again walked in. I'm just this tortured guy over in the corner, and he's just looking at me like, man, it's you're okay, buddy, you're okay, and you got the job, like here, I want you to do it, and I still see him from time to time, and he said, I gave you your first job, but it was just that, just constantly moving in the direction of deeper understanding. And so did they know what to do with me? No, I don't think so. I wasn't conventionally. I didn't look like someone that was on TV.
But that's a good thing.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Although he was in 90210. I did look this up. I did see you in an episode of 90210. Yes, it's true.
Luke Perry was a great man. Yeah. All of them were.
Yeah.
But I just didn't think how other people perceived me, right? Yeah. I never thought about that. I mean, because I had a Southern accent, that worked for me.
Right.
Much like, an Italian from New York. I mean, if you're Italian from New York, you're going to play a mafia guy. If you're, from the South, you're going to play, the roles that you play. I mean, and at least I had a box to fit in.
Yeah.
And so, I just kept moving.
I want to talk about what it was like to go see Tender Mercies as a child, to love Robert Duvall, and then to get a call to be in the movie that he is directing. And I'm talking about The Apostle in 1997. And how old were you when you went for that? You must have been still very young.
I was like 23, I think. Yeah,
so here's
24.
Someone you would look up to. You watched,
Yeah.
So how did that all come about, and how hard was it to sort of leave behind your, oh my God, it's Robert Duvall, and actually get to work?
Right? Yeah, that's the thing. I think for any of us that get the opportunity to work with somebody that means so much to us, I'll never forget. I mean, my manager has been my manager for a very long time, and I'm a loyal person, and so I'll never forget that she called and said, "Hey, he's Bob Duvall is this movie that he wrote. He's going to direct it, and you know, you have an audition, and there it is. It's all the way down in Culver City, and I was living in Glendale." And it's like, oh my God, okay, this is my guy, this is my hero, and got in the car, heading down, and there was a woman whose car had broken down on the side of the road, like her tire was flat, and I looked at her because I could see her on the shoulder, and I was in my car, and I thought, I gotta help this woman. I gotta help her. You know, that's what Sammy would do, the character that I was playing.
Yeah.
And I gotta help this person who's just like sitting on the side of the road. And so I pulled over, and I helped her change her tire, and really found Sammy kind of in that moment. And then you know, but I thought I missed my audition because I was really late. And then I got there, and they said, "Okay, you could still read," and I read, and
Did you read for Robert Duvall?
no,
Okay.
he wasn't there. He was already down in Louisiana, but it was on tape with the cast and director, and then a week later, I get home, and there's a message on my answering machine saying, "Hey, Walton, it's Bob Duvall," and that was it. And the thing is, with my teacher, he only quoted 3 people. Really, it was Anthony Hopkins, Robert Duvall, and Jessica Tandy. Mm-hmm. Like, that's what he talked about. He talked about those 3 people and the way that they approach work and holding up a mirror to nature and all the rest of it. And so, understanding this after that being kind of beat into you, that this is how this person works. It is a child's game. You turn yourself over to an imaginary circumstances, and you read the script 250 times, and then all of a sudden I show up in Louisiana, and there he is. Like, that's my guy, and he knew how I felt about him, and luckily, you know, for me, we went out to dinner, and I said, "Oh, I've got to just get this out of the way. Is it true that you do this?" Like, recited everything that my teacher had been saying for so long, and he said, "Yeah, it's that simple.
Right.
That's all I do." And over the course of that movie, we became very good friends, and he was a mentor to me. You know, over the course of my life, and certainly kind of making that movie. I'll never forget. Like, one day. He didn't anticipate what was going to happen at the end of that movie.
Right.
You know, where I was coming from, and but there was a day pretty early on. He knew how enamored I was with him, and how fearful and full of anxiety and all the rest of it, like we all get.
Yeah.
And and it was just this innocuous scene, and he kind of comes in it, and he walks in, and he's just doing it, the way that Robert Duvall does it, and I'm just saying my line, over and over again. And he said, "Walton, you don't have to say it that way every time. You could say it any way you want to say it. And let's see what happens if I walk in, if I do this." And he did. And it's like, oh, you're just giving me an invitation to play.
Right.
That's really kind of it.
Yeah.
And it was that really opened me up. And then the ending of that movie turned out the way that it turned out. And I think Bobby was really taken with that. And I'm just grateful that, after all of these years, he's that was my guy, and I got to have that time with him.
And what an incredible lesson to take from that as well.
Yeah.
It's amazing. Yeah. then I think we're probably, what would you consider the first break after that? Is it The Shield? Was it probably getting into The Shield at that point after?
Yeah, probably.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think so.
I'm curious, like,
yeah.
because you and I were talking a little bit earlier. This is a room of people who can certainly understand the anxieties of the hustle. At what point did you start to feel like, okay, I am going to make this career work for me? I can start being more intentional in the parts that I'm seeking out and the people that I want to work with.
Well, because we're all actors here, right? And you're just trying to find your path and and find your place kind of in all of this. The biggest lesson I learned on the other side of the apostle, thinking that there was a moment there where we were at the Toronto Film Festival, and it got into my head that, you need a publicist. You got to have a publicist to do the. Oh God, am I going to miss out? Am I going to miss this What is this opportunity? Oh my God, and I'll never forget the producer. His name was Rob Carliner. He said, "Let me tell you something, Walton. You will get nothing from this experience, nothing more than Robert Duvall editing this movie the way that he edited it for your performance at the end of it. That's the only thing that you should seek. That's truth. The rest of it, all of that, those castles are built on sand. This is the only one with a rock foundation. So just have that be your true north." And it has been that way for me for 35 years.
Yeah.
After that, I wasn't concerned with anything but
The truth, yeah.
the truth.
Yeah.
And finding the truth and going to work. And so I was able to do a number of movies kind of in that time, and I got to do something with Tony and Hopkins, and we became good friends during the course of making, and got to ask him all those same questions I asked Bobby. And then I got the Shield when I was 29 years old, and was promptly fired, but without even knowing it.
I was going to ask. I read about this, that you didn't know that they were trying to fire you, though, right? Because I read you had spoken about this to someone else, that he did you a huge favor and didn't even tell you that they wanted to fire you, right? It was the studio. Or
yeah, I did the pilot of The Shield, and I didn't know this until the end of the first season when we were doing a DVD commentary where Sean Ryan said, "Hey Walton, you know that the studio wanted to fire you after the pilot." I said, "I only had like 6 lines, man." And he said, no, they just didn't understand where you were coming from. And so he went to bat for me, and without me knowing. And then he wrote the second episode, which was really just me.
Yeah.
And it was because of that they said, "Oh, okay, I'm sorry. Yeah, we made a mistake." And then that really kind of started it. And that was, I don't know if you guys feel this way, but I'll never forget pulling up to, we filmed at the studio called Prospect Studios in Los Angeles, which was over in Los Feliz. And I still will never forget the very first day I pulled into that lot for this show, and I saw my name, in a parking space, and I just immediately kind of jumped out of my car, and I just took it off the parking space because I didn't want, it was so intimidating.
Yeah.
And I felt like, I don't want to get used to this, because that could go away too.
Right.
So I'm just going to go to take this off. I'll find another place to park my car, and I just kind of, I never had that feeling of like I'm here. I can just rest on my laurels. Like I have a career.
Right.
I don't know. I just never looked at it that way.
Yeah.
And
but you're not the same tortured in the corner person you used to be. Yeah.
No, but I didn't look at it like that, and it wasn't until really we got into the making of that show where I did feel like, okay, now I've found a story that I can really sink my teeth into, and we were some of the first people that were ever giving an opportunity to tell an 84-hour linear, nuanced kind of exploration of the people that we were playing. We didn't know that when we started, but I did feel that halfway through the first season that this is something I can really come to work and explore.
Right.
You know,
And The Shield is one of those shows that I think was at the very the forefront of bringing in this sort of peak television, this golden age that we've been in, that you've been such a part of. And I'm sure people here also can relate to this, but as an actor, being able to play the same character season after season, is there great discovery in that? Is it like continually interesting getting to delve in? Do you like the idea of living with a character for multiple seasons?
I do. I mean, I love film, it's how finite it is.
Mm-hmm.
You have a beginning, a middle, and an end. But I love television for you don't know where it's gonna go, and especially have my opportunity in TV coming with The Shield, and it being one of those, it was The Sopranos and it was us.
Yeah.
And so we left no stone unturned over the course of those 84 episodes and discovering kind of who these people are, and I didn't have those opportunities in film, I mean I was never going to be the lead or to get these opportunities in movies. So I just took them wherever they came, and I just looked for, I say looked for good material. I was just lucky enough to kind of fall into some really good material early on, and I just went to work. That's the only thing that I know how to do.
You're a worker.
And I think it's over the course of that at some point, you get secure, knowing that I may not know how to do this, but I know me well enough to know that I'll figure it out, and I'm going to work harder than anyone in the room, and that I love this shit, man. You know what? I love this art form, and I love people that do it, and I think I still get so excited about it.
We, on our way in, you got stopped by a fan of Justified who recognized you. A lot of fans of Justified, and yet I happen to know you tried to turn Justified down at least twice before accepting it, right?
I did, yeah. I did turn it down, a couple of times, and because I didn't want to play, at least on the page. I mean, it's Elmore Leonard. And nobody writes the way that Elmore Leonard does, and it was so complicated and so nuanced, and it was really just for the pilot. But I just felt like it was. It said I didn't feel like it was. I didn't want to play that person anymore, and I needed something to be different in the story. And the third time they kind of came back, I said, okay. And I love Tim Oliphant and everybody that was kind of involved. Graham Yost, I was a huge fan of, and Mike Denner. But I said, listen, there's two things that I need. I need for him to believe that what the only thing that Boyd Crowder needs is an audience, and that I'm the smartest guy in the room, because I couldn't sell my culture out anymore, coming from the South,
Fair.
And I'm a poor kid from Georgia, and I identified with Boyd Crowder because I think he wanted to escape his own poverty and rise above his station in life, and they said yes, and so I did the pilot, and I was killed, at the end of the pilot, until they showed it to audiences. And then they said, you want to stick around for a little while? And I said, yeah, I'd love to do that. So yeah, my career's kind of been that.
Yeah.
It's been a series of, making the most of an opportunity without trying to make the most of an opportunity. Not being Machiavellian about it, but just showing up, man, and
But working
enjoying
with
it.
people that you can say, I want this character to be the smartest person in the room, and them to get it, and
Yeah.
them to say you're right, and that is how he should be.
You know what?
written.
I believe this wholeheartedly. I spent the first 10 years of my life as an actor. I got to work with some incredible people. And I didn't say a fucking word. I didn't say anything. I listened. I observed. I listened. I observed. And when I did have something to say, it was only because I learned what to say from the best. And the things that I had to say, like in that moment, were never coming from ego.
No.
Ever. It was just coming from story, you know? And how I felt I could help my creators, the creator of the story, the director of the story, tell this story more effectively, right? In a way that didn't compromise who I was as a person. And here, 35 years into my experience, I think I'm known to be a really good collaborator,
Yeah.
because it never ever comes from ego. It only comes from a love of the story, and spending as much time as you possibly can understanding the story. Sometimes as well as the director or the writer, or sometimes more than, because it's from this one particular point of view.
Mm-hmm. What do you want from a director? Like, some people I know, I'm sure some people here feel this way, want a clear runway. They want to be left alone. Some people want a lot of guidance and a lot of talking. What is it that you like when you have a director?
The way that you put that is so smart, because everybody is so different. Tarantino, said that 90% of his job is just casting the right actor, right? That's what he does, and then the other 10%, he's just noodling.
He's a pretty good writer too.
He's a pretty good writer.
Yeah.
Yeah, but he's just tweaking those 10%. But
right.
So I really kind of come at it from that angle, because I've been told that by some great directors that I've worked with, and I have to believe that they hired me for a reason, right?
Right.
And so I tend to like to be left alone, meaning that I don't. I spent the early part of my career, like those first 10 years, hanging around the monitor right after take, wanting to hear something, maybe wanting to watch something, wanting to like some kind of compliment, to some validation, and it made me feel very empty. I felt like I was looking for that, and I couldn't find any peace in seeking that approval from other people. And then there came a point where I just said, "Fuck it," I don't need that approval. Right. I know what I'm doing, and I come from this teacher who really emphasized being self-reliant, and so I took that to heart, and so now every director that I work with, and I think most actors that I work with know that my heart's in the right place, and I'm there to win. I'm there to help.
Yeah.
Like, how do we tell this and story? And so I'll take anything that any director wants to say, and try it. But if they are quiet, I'm okay with that too. Either way.
You brought up Quentin Tarantino, and it is one of my favorite audition stories I've ever heard, is when you went in to read for Django, if you don't mind sharing that story. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yes, Sara, I was there. So well, we all auditioned, right? I mean, that's what we did. That's what we do. And I get this call of my wife, a friend of hers, worked for Quentin, and said, "Hey, you know what? I just read this script, and you're perfect for him. I gotta, you sit down. We gotta have this dinner together, with him." And I had met him before with Bob Duvall, actually at a tango party for 6 people in Venice.
He loves a tango.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so we went to this dinner and had a lovely conversation. And he said, yeah. So you come in, here's the thing. You just pick a couple of roles and whatever. And so I went into the room and he said, again, just pick like 3 or 4 roles that speak to you. And I walked in and I did them. And he said, that was fantastic, Walton. That was great. It was a great job. I said, well, I said, oh, I'm not leaving. No, I'm gonna read Sam's role. I'm gonna read Leo's role. I'm gonna read Kurt's role. I said, the point, I don't care if I get this job.
Yeah.
I've won. I'm saying your words in front of you right now. I just want to. I want to say as many words of yours as I possibly can. And he said, are you serious? I said, yeah, man, I don't care if this works out. I'm just here right now, man. And he said, yeah, okay, well, then let's play. Yeah. And he played like every other role in these, seminal scenes that Sam did or that Leo did or that Jamie did. Yeah. And I just played all these different roles, And at the end of it, it's like, man, what an honor. It was so lovely to see you again, man. Yeah. I'll see you around. Good luck with your movie. Good luck.
He was not so fast. Not so fast, yeah.
And then, I get a call a month later. Hey, come down to New Orleans and let's go to work.
And then
that's how that all began.
And then Hateful Eight, you also got to, bigger role for that one too.
Yep.
Well, that looked very cold.
Say that again.
That looked like a cold.
Yes,
cold.
It was. Yes, it was very, very, very cold. Yeah, we had a table reading for that before it was going to be a movie. We had a table reading in downtown Los Angeles, and there was a 2 or 3 day kind of rehearsal, 2-day rehearsal, and I couldn't make the first day because I was working. Knowing that he said, well, the second day, we can mess around, but the second day, you have to be there. And I was able to get early morning flight, kind of make it there, knowing what I know about him and these kind of read-throughs. They're a big deal, And I remember, waking up that morning after working all night, jumping on the plane, getting out to Los Angeles, getting out of the cab, running up the stairs, to this little bitty rehearsal space that he had on Santa Monica Boulevard, and then stopping at the door because I knew everybody that was on the other side of that door, and I just couldn't bring myself to knock or to open the door. I just had to catch my breath for a minute and think, okay, all right, yeah, all these people are going to be there. You got this, man. You got it. And then opened the door, walked in. Nobody said a word. Quentin said, okay, you made it. Great, sit down. We're going to start with you. And there was one seat open, and it was sitting next to Sam Jackson. And I knew that they did that kind of on purpose, or Sam did that. And I just sat down and exhaled, and Sam looked over at me and said, you got this, motherfucker? And then Quentin said, you ready? And I said, yeah, I'm ready. Yeah. Let's go. And then, we read it and off to the races. And then, the reading was a hit, and then he decided to make the movie.
It's unbelievable. Yeah.
It was one of the greatest experiences of my life, getting to work with all of those people in that way, and that story in particular.
He's only made 9 movies. You've been in 2 of them. Yeah, it's a big deal. Another frequent collaborator, Danny McBride. I want to know what it was like when you two first met each other, because this seems like destiny for you two to be in each other's orbits. So,
the very first time we met each other was backstage at Jazz Fest. And we were both a little lit up, and it was like just passing. It was like, hey, man, bye-bye, And then I went in to read for him, and I had some braces on at the time, and and he was doing Eastbound and Down. I was a huge fan of Eastbound and Down.
Sure.
And David Gordon Green, his collaborator, was a friend of mine from the film festival circuit, and I walked in for this reading, and big fan, and I said, you know what your problem is? No, what's my problem? And I said, you just need someone to challenge you, man. You know? and I went in and I did this kind of reading, and I get a phone call afterwards, and they said, you know, you're not going to get the role. I went to Jason Sudeikis. He said, but what you did was dangerous. It was dangerous, and he really liked it. And then cut to a couple years later. You know, I had done some more things in my career by that point, and we were at a party, and he said, "Hey man, you know, I want to send you something. I'm working on something." And then when we started the Hateful Eight, he sent this script, and it was Vice Principals.
Unbelievable.
And I read it and thought, okay, you know, I know exactly kind of what to do with this. And he just wanted to jump on the phone and kind of talk through it. And, you know, knowing what we know about anybody that extends an invitation like that, you have to give them something, right? You want to do it for them. And I just kind of found it pretty quickly. And so I started doing it for him over the phone. And that was it.
Yeah.
And he held off. They shot around because the schedule went over so far on the Hateful Eight that they waited for 6 weeks and just filled it in with other things. And I wrapped at 9 o'clock in the morning, jumped on a plane, landed at 11 o'clock at night, got my tips frosted, started work the next morning, you know, and it was still, you know, kind of that same thing. I think that's what, I don't know, I think one of the greatest things to come from getting to do this job for a while is self-reliance. You know, I believe in me.
Yeah.
I do. I feel like on my worst day, I'm going to bring my heart. I'm going to bring everything I have to this, and I'll find a way through it. And I was so overwhelmed and intimidated that very first day, kind of walking on set with these people that are so adept at improvising and pop culture and all of these references. And I just thought, you know what? Keep your head down and, you know, and just do your thing. And it was after that, you know, very first day we kind of looked at each other and he said, okay.
Here we are.
Yeah. And by the end of that first week, it was we knew we had something really special. And he's, yeah.
I mean, also, I can imagine it's a lot of fun getting to be on a Danny McBride set. And
It's a lot of fun having dinner with that guy.
Yeah.
Let alone working with him. Yeah, he's the funniest person I've ever met in my life.
And fellow Southerners, him and David Gordon Green. Also, that's nice.
Yeah. And Jody, all of those guys.
That's
great. Yeah.
And that brings us to, I mean, an incredible last year of work that we've gotten to experience with you. Because not only you reteamed for the Righteous Gemstones, we've got Baby Billy, which we'll be getting into, because I'm sure people here are big fans of him, as am I. I was singing Teen Just this morning. And then we had Fallout, which you were nominated last year. And then White Lotus to cap off an incredible, I mean, there's very slim, what can you even tie those three characters with besides?
Pain.
Yeah, it's true.
Sadness.
Slightly wounded.
Slightly wounded.
Yes. So, I mean, I don't even know where to White Lotus. I mean, you are such, I know you, and I know that you are a big fan of good writing and of artistic vision. So I can only imagine how happy you were to hear that Mike White wanted you to be in the White Lotus for the third season.
Yeah, I got the news. We were doing press for Fallout, early press for Fallout, and I was in Los Angeles at a dinner with my agent, and I walked in, and he said, "I've got some news for you." And I said, "Okay." And he said, "Mike White wants you to be in the White Lotus." And I said, "Are you fucking kidding me? Are you serious?" And I said, "Excuse me, you mind if I take a moment?" And I went outside, and I just called my wife and cried, because I thought, like, this is a guy that I've been a fan of his for a really long time, and I have some friends kind of in common, but I'd never obviously worked with him, and I'd never met him, and it came with one condition, and that condition was that you read every single script, so you know what it is that you're signing up for, and so the next day, talked to the producer that night, and the next morning I was getting on a plane, and the link wasn't working to download the scripts at 5 o'clock in the morning.
I find this weirdly encouraging. That this can happen to other people. Yes.
And so I was texting with the producer before I got on the plane, and I said, "Listen, man, I'm about to get on this plane. I gotta use this time. I gotta start reading this." And he said, "Well, the link, try this." I said, "The link's not working." And he said, "Okay, can I trust you?" And I said, "Yes. I'm hermetically sealed, buddy. Don't worry about it." And he sent me the first 5 episodes of The White Lotus season 3 with no, just emailed them to me, right? There was no lock, there's nothing to get in. And so I had them, and I thought, you know what, I could sell all of these 5. I don't even have to do this job. I could just call one of these magazines and sell them right now and make more money. But I read those 5, and then landed here in New York, and finished the last 3. And at the end of it, crying uncontrollably, knowing kind of where this journey was going to go, I gave the producer, a call, and I said, I'm in, and I'm in. I said, but this is not going to be easy. I'm going to go there. This is going to be very, very, very painful. Mm-hmm. And being a fan of the White Lotus, I so much of I had a number of friends in season 1 and a few people in season 2, but it was voyeuristic, right? And I felt like I didn't get emotional at the end of season 1 or at the end of season 2, and I felt like, well, I can't stay away from that, right? I mean, the journey of this man is something that I've experienced on some level in my own life. A different set of circumstances for sure, but I went to Thailand looking for answers after a trauma in my own life 18 years earlier. And so I knew what the opportunity was to tell the story, kind of in this way. And they said, that's why we want you to do it. And so that was kind of it. They didn't know who this, character was, or how he dressed or anything. And I said, I know, I know it.
Yeah.
And I said, he looks like this. And they, started sending some clothes, and it was a little like James Woods and Salvador, and a cross between him and Gonzo. For real. And I've traveled a lot in my life, and I've met a number of people like this over the course of my life, and but I understood his pain, really, and then that was kind of it, It was like the hardest part of that whole experience. I'm pretty quiet at work anyway. I stay off, I'm alone a lot of time. I don't really kind of sit in a group of people and talk. I kind of save as much energy as I possibly can for what it is we're asking ourselves to do. Mm-hmm. And I like being in that headspace. I like going to work and being in a headspace, and a number of actors that I really look up to. Now I've learned that from over the course of my career, and but the course of this journey, playing Rick Hatchett, sitting with his trauma.
Yeah.
Really, that we all have. I mean, trauma is the thing that unifies all of us. We all have it. And if we shared it with each other, if we all sat in a big circle, nobody would have a problem, because you would understand, that we all are going through whatever it is that we're going through, and there are more overlaps than we care to mention. Mm-hmm. But over the course of telling, this story and kind of sitting with this for such a long time, having this kind of, there were so many ups and downs over the course of the experience, but it all culminated in a very full circle moment for me.
That's nice.
A few of them, but one in particular was my very last day of working. And we were filming it on the Chao Phraya River, right, that goes through Bangkok. And then we were pulling into this dock, on the river for the last night of work. And as we're pulling in from the river, I'm looking at this dock thinking, I know this place. I recognize, wait a minute, what? Oh my God. Oh my God, that's my room. That's the room that I stayed in 18 years ago when I was in this much pain, for real, looking for the same things that this guy, Rick Hatchett, was looking for. And we pulled up to this dock and we got out and we filmed my entire last day in front of the room that I stood on that balcony 18 years almost to the day, And so, yeah, it dovetailed in so many spiritual ways into my own personal life. And it was, it was really spiritually cleansing on so many levels to get to play that guy. It was so complicated, Rick Hatchett.
I loved Rick Hatchett. And it's funny, when I first heard, they all had to stay at the Four Seasons for 6 months in Thailand, I'm like, I'll take it. That sounds great. But in fact, after talking to you and some other people who were there, it was actually very difficult. And as you said, it's a little bit isolating, and, to have to sit in that headspace of where Rick was at, I'm sure, for 6 months, that's a tall order.
Yeah, I think with everything, I mean, I love it.
Yeah.
I cherish, the opportunity to go to work and to be in that space, because it's not my own life; it's in your imagination, mm-hmm. right? And I just think that work is sacred, and any opportunity you get to do it for me, it's like going to church. I have that much respect for it, respect for people that do it, and reverence and gratitude for the opportunity to do it. Mm-hmm. And so Rick was it was difficult from the beginning, like the story, because everybody else, why they're there, the first 5 or 6 minutes of their story. You don't understand why Rick's there for 4 episodes.
Right.
And so it's really hard to kind of toe that line and to keep people interested without kind of offending them and all the rest of it, even though you don't think about those things. But that, in conjunction with just not being able to really spend not being able to be social at work because this guy is so anti-social until he isn't, right? Over the course of the season. And my buddy Sam Rockwell shows up, and then all of a sudden this guy who was so tortured and without a life that seemed normal to any regular person, all of a sudden becomes very normal, and he has friends in the world, and he's concerned about them, and they have history, and he shares with them, what he's kind of going through, and to be driven by. Just to spend 6 or 7 months, a year of your life being driven by, one thing, this one story, this one man has defined his entire existence. Every day is colored by, this tragedy in his own life. And so who is Rick Hatchett without this person in it? Like, who are we without our villains? Do you cease to exist? I mean, do you have an opinion? What is that experience like? And so then to hold on to that for such a long time, and I just wanted to get it out of my body.
Yeah.
By the time we landed in the room, by the time I landed in the room with Scott Glenn.
Well, I wanted to read to you what Scott Glenn said about you and Sam Rockwell. He is quoted as saying, "Walton and Sam Rockwell are infinitely more talented than I'll ever dream of being." I know, it's Scott Glenn.
Liar.
But I feel like those scenes with Sam Rockwell and with Scott Glenn, unbelievable as far as just pure acting two-person scenes. And I know you and Sam go way back, so that must have been a nice bit of comfort during a hard shoot to have somebody that was an actual friend in that scene with you.
Yeah, to go through that with him. Yeah, I was his very first day on set, when I got to work, I just ran, and I didn't even knock on his trailer. I just opened the door. Sammy!
Yeah.
It felt so good to kind of have that comfort.
Yeah.
Yeah. There was we all have been doing this for the time that we've been doing it, and we look for that one thing, right? What is that drug? What is that thing that we all kind of come back to? And it is that moment where it's pure, right? You hear action, like it's Pavlovian in a way at this point. You hear it, you know that you're supposed to start living another life in front of other people, an imaginary life in front of other people. And I think, at least for me, and for I think all of us, when you get to that moment where all of a sudden you're flying, without wings, you're just flying, you're in it, and you're just playing pretend without even trying to play pretend. And there was this one scene with Scott Glenn, I just get so emotional thinking about it. All of this shit stays with me.
Yeah.
It's just right there. And it was during this final kind of confrontation that we have where Rick Hatchett, gets to face, the person that has caused this much pain in his life, and really thinking about that. What is it like for any of us that has been victimized on any level to get to face the perpetrator of that act or whatever that is, and that your whole life is defined by it, and then all of a sudden you get that audience with this person. And Mike called action on this one take, and it's the one that he used. And I'll never forget, when he called it, I just sat there. I just didn't talk. I didn't talk for like a minute and a half, maybe. I just sat there and looked at this guy. He doesn't know why I'm there, and I'm about to tell him why I'm here. And there was a drink on the table. I remember picking that up. And I just remember looking at him, thinking like, you have no idea what you've done to my life, to me, And then I started talking. And then all of a sudden, y'all, it was you being in that flow. Like, there it is. And that was the take. And the take was like 7 or 8 minutes long, this conversation. And then it ended. And after it was over, I just stood up and was like, I hope it was as good for you as it was for me. That's it. That's the goal, man.
Yeah.
That makes you want to come back.
You say
time and time again.
It's still right there. It's still very easily accessible to you. I'm curious.
All of them are.
How do you say goodbye? That's what I'm curious about.
Looking at Raylan Givens' eyes at the end of Justified and saying, "We dug coal together." Like, that was my idea. Meaning that we have to say it. I'll say it. And that feeling is everything. Walking into the room as Shane Vendrell and saying family meeting, and the last episode of that, I remember like it was yesterday, laying on the floor, with Sam on the bed, reading the Lincoln letter, knowing it was a fucking lie, it was a lie. All of those things are still with me. Like those are the seasons of an actor's life. Mm-hmm. I mean, those are the moments that we all live for. Those are the things that we will remember forever. I don't remember where I was in fall of 2014 unless I had my name on a call sheet.
Yeah.
And so the same thing with baby Billy Freeman, and the same thing with the end of season 2 of Fallout.
I was gonna say we got a whole other season coming of the Ghoul, right?
Yeah. We just
that's
that
a
was
fun one too.
Yeah, it's fun.
Well, it's a lot of time in the makeup chair. I'm sure.
Yeah.
It's what, like 3 hours to get Gould?
It's we've got it down to about 2:15.
All right.
2:30, but then you're once you get into that makeup, which is not really a problem for me, you're turned off from the rest of the world.
Right.
Like there is no communicating really with anybody. There's no Face ID on your iPhone. All of your passwords are gone. Facial recognition, but you're just kind of quiet. You're locked away inside of that experience,
Yeah.
But yeah, I've lived such a charmed life. I'm so grateful to be here.
Well, we're very grateful to get to watch you work. I'll speak for everybody here. You are interested in so much, as you said earlier, not just acting. You're interested in photography. You're interested in design. So where do you have a sense of what the next 10 years of your career is going to look like, or do you not let yourself play those kinds of games?
I don't let myself play those games.
Mm-hmm. That's probably healthy.
But I do feel like I'm 53 years old. I've been around, and I feel like I have more to say than I ever have before. And I feel there's a level of peace and excitement, and I feel like I want to walk into opportunities as opposed to running, and I want to take the time that I have left on this earth, or in this business, because it's all cyclical, and we all will, the phone won't ring anymore. But I do want to take the time that I have the microphone to say something, and I don't know what those opportunities will be yet, but I am looking forward to saying them with confidence and patience.
I'm looking forward to hearing them. I want to make sure we get to some of these nice people's questions. You want to look?
Y'all are ready to go. I know y'all are ready to go. Everybody's looking at their
Here we go.
watches.
Let's see.
Okay, all right, here we go. Okay, questions.
This is a question from Tom.
Okay, Tom.
How do you keep yourself grounded and centered amidst the uncertainty of work prospects?
You're an interviewer, are you? You're a journalist. That's a fantastic question, right? In life, I tend to, I'm pretty right-sized about, where I belong in this world, and being a parent and having, being responsible for a child keeps me pretty grounded. That's really kind of the main source for me. I just think looking around you and not taking, I think you take life very seriously, not so seriously, and you show up for every opportunity that you have, as with everything that you have, and don't compare yourself to anyone else. you know. And I think having that philosophy allows me to just stay even more than I've ever been able to.
What do you think would have happened
And
to
a
you?
cocktail. And a Negroni, or a glass of wine at the end of a long day of work.
What would have happened? How different do you think your life would have been if you had gotten wildly famous at 19?
Oh God, I wouldn't have lasted very long. You know, to be quite honest with you, I don't. Yeah, I don't know. I was allowed to fail without people watching. You know?
You cooked
Yeah,
quickly.
yeah. It was always like a good stock. It was always kind of going up.
Going up.
And yeah, I'm grateful for the space to explore.
This question is from Daniel. Nice smiley face for you. This is a very specific question, which I appreciate, and that is, what happened to Ginny Mule? And do you plan to executive produce anytime soon?
Wow. Ginny Mule was, I had a production company with a couple of friends of mine. This wonderful actor, Ray McKinnon and Lisa Blunt. And
he was in that first TV movie you did in 1990, right?
He was. He played my father, in 1990 in this Murder in Mississippi. And is one of the most important people in my life. And an incredible writer, and he's been an actor for a really long time. And Lisa was an unbelievable actor, an officer and a gentleman, and a number of other things. And we started a production company when I was in my late 20s, and we started with a short film, and we won the Academy Award for it. You know, and we got, you know, friends and family, and did it, you know, got a friend's truck and filmed it in Georgia, and it was only because of the Shield and meeting Michael Chiklis, and we were doing the pilot, where he said, you know, I watched your short film, man. It's really good. You could submit that to the Academy Awards. You should submit it. And I called Ray, and it's like, hey, man, we should submit this to the Academy Awards. And then we won. And then we made 3 movies, and Ginny Mule was a name. Ginny Mule Pictures was the name of our production company. And but we let it go about 10, 15 years ago now. But he did a show that I was going to do, but I took Justified instead. And so he went his way, and I went mine.
But are you interested in producing and maybe directing at some point?
You know what? My partner took the directing credit, and I took the producing credit. But we did a lot of that together. Mm-hmm. I feel I want to help directors. Mm-hmm. You know, I know a lot about a lot now, and I know everybody's job making movies, especially independent movies. You know, I've done pretty much every job. I pride myself on knowing everything that's going on set at all times. You know, this is a business about solving problems before they happen, right? Anticipating problems and solving them before they happen. And I understand how hard every single person works and what their job is. And so I think I can help that way. I don't want to direct. No.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah. Very
Clear-headed.
clear about it.
This is from Helen. She said, I enjoyed watching you on Justified. She said, I had a hillbilly crush on you and Timothy. Also a fan of Fallout and the Unicorn, which was unfortunately short-lived. What, if any, work have you done that you hope no one sees? And I'm going to add to that, because it's a good question. What's something that you've done that you wish more people had seen?
Wow. Something like for no one to see. Well, Humanoids from the Deep was that was a big, you know, early Roger Corman. You know, we filmed at Roger Corman Studios.
That's
that was a big one. I really want no one to see ever. And it's something that I wish that more people had seen. Well, you know what? There was my wife's movie, to be quite honest. Even though a lot of people did see it, it's called The Uninvited, and she's you know, a wonderfully talented writer and director, and it's a movie that says a lot about a lot, and for the people that have seen it, you know, they were moved the way that she intended them to be moved, and so it would probably be that. It just kind of came out, and or this movie, Them That Follow, that I did with Olivia Colman.
I gotta say, I've met Walton's wife, and she's very, very, very cool. So he married well, on top of everything else. This is from Daniel, and he wants to know, while navigating this industry, what kind of people should I avoid / look out for?
Wow.
We're going straight into this.
Straight into it.
Yeah.
Because I've avoided it, and that is people that talk about themselves nonstop, right? Avoid sitting in those chairs with a bunch of other actors and talking about the craft of acting. I think, and avoid people that put themselves at the center of every story. I think that getting the opportunity to go to work in the first place is a miracle, and to treat it like church, and to just stay away from people that are just concerned with talking about themselves. Spend time with people that want to listen.
This is from Stephanie, who agrees with me about how great you and Danny McBride are together, and wants to know if you have any plans to work together anytime soon.
As a matter of fact, he is one of my best friends, and we went on vacation together this summer. He's been working really hard for a really long time, and we talked about some things. So I would think that that collaboration hasn't come to an end. I think something else will happen. I certainly hope so.
Well, this is a good question about getting back to Baby Billy. Jeff wants to know, how long does it take you to develop different characters, and what is your process? I'm imagining it's different for everybody.
That's such a great question. Because we all answer that differently, and I'm going to be honest, and it's hard maybe for you. You may not believe me, but I just see it. I really don't believe in playing a character. I don't believe in playing a character. I believe that you turn yourself over to an imaginary set of circumstances, and you hold a mirror up to nature. And you read the script 250 times. That's what Tony Hopkins says, And it's over the course of reading that script so many times that your imagination can really run wild. All of a sudden, the words on the page mean nothing, even though they're just a roadmap to something much deeper, but they exist kind of inside of you. And so then when you're working, anything can happen. And for me, I don't plan like, oh my God, like does Baby Billy, like I don't approach it from the outside in. Like I don't think like, what does Baby Billy, does he walk like this? Does he do this? I don't think about it in those terms. I put it on, I let it stew in my imagination, and then I didn't know really until the very first day walking the set that he had a thing here, that he did this, because that's him. To me, all of these people exist in the world. That's how I approach it, and so yeah. Does that answer your question? Yeah, it's a way to go about it. It's like just to look at it like that. And one of the greatest phone calls of my life after doing this movie, Them That Follow, I did this movie really for Olivia Colman and the cast in general. It's a wonderful writer-director, and the story was wonderful. But really, it was what I believed Sammy from The Apostle became in his life. And it was coming full circle for me with that story. And so I did this movie, and when it was done, I had it sent to Robert Duvall. And I said, I just want you to know that this performance is dedicated to you, man. This story is you, and this is where I feel like Sammy went with his life. And the thing that he said, I still have the message or whatever, but we got on the phone, and he said, Walton, I believe that I can pull up into Lemuel's yard and I can knock on his door and he'll answer it. He said, that's the greatest compliment I can give you. And that's true, you know, to approach playing people as if they really exist in the world.
Yeah. Well, I can't thank you enough for all your time. Thank you for all your questions.
Are you kidding me? Monday night, New York City, live from SAG-AFTRA. It's Monday night.